We'll move back up to number 1, discussion and hosting governor's fishing opener.
Right. Well, good evening. I'm Stephanie Bernstrom. I'm with the Greater Grand Forks Convention and Visitors Bureau, and thank you so much for having me here this evening. Julie Rigg, our Executive Director, sends her apologies. She was called away at the last moment. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the governor's fishing opener. You have a packet before you from the CVB. We have the request for proposal from the governor's fishing office. This is for the 2020 governor's fishing opener. They obviously don't have one prepared yet for 2021, and you'll also see a list of our services as well as our visitor guide. So feel free to take a look at that, and you can always contact me at the office if you have any further questions. This is coming to our attention because we actually had a representative from Explore Minnesota Tourism visit our office a couple of months ago and asked why we hadn't considered hosting the governor's fishing opener. And frankly, we hadn't, because although there are some walleye available, the governor's fishing opener is walleye opener weekend, and it's considered typically to be a walleye event. And this time of year in Grand Forks, particularly on the rivers, is a really good time for catfish. So I took a really close look at the request for proposal from Minnesota Tourism. There are a couple mentions of walleye in there, but mostly it pertains to eating some walleye dinner during the opener. And I had a call with Megan in the governor's fishing opener office and kind of pitched what we could do in Grand Forks, East Grand Forks primarily, and that was always an issue for us too, because Minnesota Tourism is pretty protective of your cities, and we feel like they don't always give East Grand Forks as much attention as we feel the community deserves. So we were very excited that they considered East Grand Forks as a host community for this. So I talked to them about East Grand Forks. I talked to them about our river access and the unique aspect of being located in somewhat of an urban area, having our downtown area and potentially launching there. But the number one question was, how would you feel if the governor went out there and caught a big old catfish instead of a walleye? And I explained that, you could be out there on the river for hours and maybe the governor gets a pike or a small walleye or something, but I can almost guarantee you get the governor and these members of the media out on the river, and you're going to have some pretty incredible fishing. This is a peak time for catfish, and if anybody's pulled a 20-plus pound catfish out of the river, it's fun. I've enjoyed it. They're impressive looking. The whole purpose of the governor's fishing opener is to shine some attention on the host community and recreation throughout Minnesota. And, every year, yes, the location moves, but you're kind of looking for the same thing on your lakes. It's not often on the river. It's been held on the river 4 times in the history of the event. So the fact that it could be on a river and you'd be getting something really unique and different by getting these giant catfish out of the river excited the governor's office as well. They thought this could be a unique opportunity, so they have encouraged us to continue looking at it. This is a long process. I'm talking about 2021. We would be submitting a proposal in November of 2019. So the time frame for us right now, I've got a couple of messages out to the coordinator with the governor's fishing office to discuss a site visit. Ideally, what we'd like to do, I would travel down to the governor's fishing opener in 2019 in Albert Lea, Minnesota, to see how that operates. And then we would hope to host a contingent from the governor's office and Explore Minnesota Tourism, and also some representatives from the DNR here in East Grand Forks in probably late May or early June. And at that time, they would take a site visit of our community, and it's really less of us showing what we can do for them, but really them showing us what goes into hosting a governor's fishing opener. What's so exciting about this opportunity is they really encourage cities to make it their own and make it shine. And I think East Grand Forks could be a wonderful, exciting destination for this event, and we could show them some really neat, unique parts of the city. So I'm asking for your support. I will keep everyone in the loop about this. Reid and Mayor Gander, we've discussed this a little bit. Like I said, it's a lengthy process. I know it seems kind of early coming to you now to talk about May 2021, but these events take a lot of time. So this would be a process that is already underway if we're interested in hosting. Like I said, we would submit a proposal in November, mid-November 2019, and I believe we hear the results of who would host the following May. So with that, if anyone has any questions, thank you again for having me here. feel free to ask me any questions now, or feel free to call our office.
Mayor, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about was where would we put in? We could put in on the red, and perhaps between now and then make some improvements to our launch facilities. We could put in on the Red Lake, or both. I mean, really, there are some different opportunities in the two rivers. There are people who would tell you that they have places on the Red Lake River that, particularly on the opener or many other prime times, they can get you a nice limit of walleye. On the Red Lake River, we have individuals in our community who have a confidence level for that. And the governor could have the walleye, we could have the fresh walleye feed and all of that. But those monster cats, I would think, it would be so distinctive and so unique as to kind of stand out from some of the other governor fishing openers. And already there is an enthusiasm for this. Our chief of police has indicated he would perhaps be available to help guide and direct some of this out on the water and whatnot. So yeah, I think it could be a good thing. We could even think about embracing our waterfront a little bit more. Reid and I talked a little bit, I guess with you as well, about some updates we could do even in the campground in preparation for this. So a lot of things could, it would be the nudge that we would need to improve our recreation offerings along the rivers, and then we'd have them indefinitely after those things came in. So.
Mr. Grassel.
That'd be an awesome time to get the DNR down there to cut down those, right? So they could see the governor ride by,
Yeah.
right? Along River Road.
Yeah.
They're receptive to that too, as you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, yep. It's happening so fast.
Glad you brought that up again.
You're right.
There's
I'm gonna
some
keep bringing it up
overgrowth
till it's
along
done.
River Road, along 12th, where you can't really see the waterway anymore. And they're receptive to us clipping that, so long as we put in some other natural vegetation in its place.
Excellent.
Anybody else have anything? Mr. DeMers.
Just kind of thinking about the Red River side, if it's something we want to do for 2021, or who knows if you get on the list to 2022, or we should start thinking about when we go down to legislature this year, even maybe looking at talking to the DNR or whomever to try to get that project going, because you don't have much time right now to get that. And I've thought about it in my head thinking, well, is it better to have it look the way it is now and have the governor see that and say, no, we need to enhance this and have him say yes? But like you said, we're trying to put our best foot forward, and we want to showcase what we can do there. So I think we should have, I think January 30th is when people are looking to go down to St. Paul. I think we should come up with some, maybe not 100% concrete proposals, but 75 to 85% proposals, so that we can pitch DNR to get them on board, so that at the latest we could have it done in 2020, if not get it going this year.
Simultaneous to Mayor and I meeting with Stephanie and Julie on this, just a couple weeks before we got together for lunch, I met with a few people from the DNR down at the boat ramp to discuss with them what a timeline looks like to be able to replace that. And I was planning on trying to time that right with this, hopefully getting this on the work session ahead of that conversation, because I really do think this is a great opportunity to be able to leverage everybody involved in the state to be able to make improvements down in the park and to that boat ramp. But you're right, Mr. DeMers, the timeline in talking with the DNR about everything that needs to go into improvements to that boat ramp and the timeline that it takes, we're going to have to start discussing it pretty actively in the next couple of months to be able to get all of the background work and the assessments of the rivers and the historical and everything that has to go into it to get it all online and get something done. So I do have a lot more information I can share in an upcoming work session to kind of get everybody up to speed on what we need to do to hopefully have our ducks in a row for all of it at the same time.
I know one of the things you mentioned that the governor's fishing opener people like to see is kind of a venue, like a chalet or a lodge kind of a feel, which we would not have here. Yet we have restaurants, and we have a wilderness area that could be turned into such as that, right? So in our minds, think about a place, whether it is closer to the rail bridge and the boat launch, or whether it's closer to our park, or maybe even up along 12th, where would be a gathering place where you actually would have meals and could set up tents and whatnot, really to entertain, because you're going to have hundreds of people gathering for this thing, many of them from state and national media, and they're going to want a staging area for all of that. So try to picture also, where does that take place?
Yeah, exactly. One of the primary pitches is or what they're used to with some events is having a venue, like if you've, you're at a resort right on the water, but that's absolutely not mandatory. In fact, in the RFP, you have to be within 15 minutes of the fishing area, which really opens us up. But I almost envision that as well, Mayor Gander, having almost your fishing village, kind of an area where you can really have a media base and some of the other bases. As part of the weekend, there are some mandatory events, but there are also a lot of opportunities for us to have community events that are free and open to the public, and that could be a great spot for everyone to gather as well. Yeah, I love that idea.
Mr. Pachivinsky.
Thank you. When the mayor brought this up earlier, he talked about a financial commitment.
Yes.
And that's significant, but that there are templates or whatever you use for raising money through corporate sponsorships and that sort of thing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk about that. They have a really wide-looking budget. From the RFP, they expect, the governor's fishing opener office expects a budget of about $120,000 to $350,000. So that's a really huge gap. The money is actually not a really big concern. The executive director, Julie Rigg, and I discussed this, and especially based on the funding formula that they have and the number of sponsors that travel with the event annually, I'm not that concerned. I do have a call in to the director of the event to get some very specific financials before we would commit to putting a proposal together for this. It's imperative that we really study the financials with it. I want to make sure that this is something that is not a struggle for people to break even. It sounds like it isn't. And they have a number of traveling sponsors, and they have Minnesota Tourism and the governor's office have sponsor packages already preset and put together. So it's basically like a formula every year, fill in the blank. And like I said, the number of traveling sponsors, I was looking at the Albert Lee Governor's Fishing Opener for 2019 website earlier today, and they already have some of their major sponsors plugged in, such as a platinum level sponsor at $20,000, another one at $10,000. So it might look like a big number, but there's a lot of sponsorships that are just kind of rollover sponsorships that go with it.
Who's on the hook for that? Is that the CVB or is that the city?
I imagine it would be the Convention and Visitors Bureau that would be on the hook for that. Okay. Yes. I'm not asking for the city to come up with the funding for that. What typically happens with this is you have an organizational committee that is put together that's on the hook for the funds. So we'll go into some specifics once we get the financials back from the governor's office, and we have a good sit down and look at that, and also with the site visit here this spring, and we'll come up with that, but no intention to have the city on the hook for that.
Okay, and don't get me wrong, I think this is great.
Great.
I really do, and I hope we get it.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, and please feel free to call me or email me if you have any questions at all.
Okay.
I do have one more thing also. We have a couple of lead organizations that serve Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. We have the CVB, we have the Chamber, and it's awfully nice to see you take the lead on a project that really is for East Grand Forks. It kind of puts your money where your mouth is, that you are an organization for this whole community, both sides of the river. That's cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I'm born and raised in Minnesota, and boy, telling my dad that I want to go after the fishing opener, I've got to tell you, I'm pretty proud of that. So if we could get the governor here, I think my dad would be bragging pretty hard about that. And we at the CVB really do care about East Grand Forks and want to promote this community. So we were very excited that Explore Minnesota Tourism gave us this opportunity to look into it, because we keep knocking on that door, and sometimes they don't listen, but sometimes they do. So we're here for your community as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.